So President Macron really reached out in a very, I thought, effective way. Certainly, it looked like you all were responding when he talked about Lafayette and he talked about World War I, World War II. At the same time, he went straight at some issues, such as the relationship with Iran and the need to keep the existing agreement even as you add to it. Was he changing hearts and minds on the floor?
Well, if I could back up to the historical alliance between France and the United States. I mean, Lafayette's on the House floor, as with George Washington. I'm a son of the American Revolution. I thought it was great how he really went through the history of the alliance between France and the United States, including World War II, when we liberated France on D-Day. My dad was part of that air campaign on a B-17, really trying to bring the two countries together on threats that face both alliances. And I think that takes us square into Iran. He does recognize Iran as a big threat. As you know, there are current negotiations on way called the E3 between the United States, France, Germany, and Britain to basically have a comprehensive agreement that, in addition to the JCPOA, the Iran deal, it would also touch on inspections. It would touch on intercontinental ballistic missiles, the ICBM, capability, and it would touch on sunset provisions and what to do with those. And what I found very, very positive today was that he agreed that these areas need to be amended, if not amended to the JCPOA or a comprehensive deal aside from the JCPOA, however they want to deal with that issue. But for him to recognize it's a threat and to sort of agree with those principles, I think is a big step forward.
Yeah, he clearly and very explicitly recognized those concerns and said they needed to be addressed. At the same time, as I listened to the speech, what I heard was, let's keep in place for the time being what we have now and build on that and negotiate further. Do you think the president, and ultimately the Congress, because you'll be involved with respect to sanctions, will be prepared to say, yes, let's leave it in place while we negotiate with Iranians on the other issues?
Well, I do think the State Department is very aggressively negotiating this with the E3, those European partners, and I'm the eternal optimist they're going to get to some agreement. As you know, the president has really till mid-May before he has to make a final decision on this. But I can tell you our diplomats are on the ground trying to work out these three major provisions that, again, to hear from the president of France that he was in agreement, I thought was excellent. And also, when he talked about the chemical weapons of Assad and the response by France, Britain, and the United States, again, showing our alliance together.
And Mr. Macron just tweeting right now saying that France will not leave the JCPOA because we signed it. We decided with President Trump to work on a new comprehensive deal. When Mr. Macron was speaking yesterday, he also talked about the goal on Iran being a regional solution that would include Syria. Would a broader strategy on Iran also help with what's happening in Syria's civil war?
And that was the fourth pillar he talked about, in addition to the three provisions I mentioned, and that is to deal with Yemen and Syria. We have to have a political resolution to Syria. It's a civil war that's caused more strife in our lifetime, I think, certainly this century, with the refugees and the bloodshed and the rise of ISIS and now Assad using chemical weapons. Very complex foreign policy issue, if you will, since Russia's there, Turkey, Saudis involved, Israel. All roads lead to Damascus in Syria. And I do think diplomacy with the French is going to be important on that.
And Congressman, we have headlines today that another federal court has prohibited the Trump administration from ending the DACA program. You and Chairman Bob Goodlatte have put together an immigration bill that has the most support from conservatives that would include more border security, ending chain migration, ending also the diversity visa lottery. How much support have you gotten from the leadership to get this proposal going?
Well, I think the support is growing. I will tell you, I just had a very good meeting with the Secretary of Homeland Security, and this obviously is one of the top issues was, border security. How can we close these legal loopholes that right now it's called catch and release? We can catch them, but if you can't deport them, they get released into our country, and some of them dangerous actors. And then finally, the DACA solution. I think it's very important that Republicans come up with a solution. We do in this bill. We give them legal status in this country so they can stay here without the anxiety that they currently have. And I strongly believe we need to fix that and fix it as soon as possible.
Wouldn't that be, though, a 3-year renewable legal status, not permanent status?
Yeah, this would give them essentially it would be renewable, but it would give them a lifetime permanent status in the country, and as long as they don't commit, crimes and that sort of thing, it gives them a 3-year renewable to stay in the country. And so we think that's a good balance. I think, do we enlarge it to DACA eligible? That'll be something we'll be talking about. But I think, as we see what's happening on the border and the Supreme Court's latest ruling on criminal aliens, it's imperative that the Congress act. I mean, the Congress has Article 1 immigration law authority, and we cannot do nothing on this.
Congressman, the president has been very explicit on this from the beginning, going back to the campaign. What is the likelihood that you'll get this through the House and then the Senate? Do you have enough support to do that? And on what time frame?
Well, I think it has to happen before the end of July. If it doesn't, then it's going to get caught up in campaign season, and then you'll see, both sides using this as a campaign issue. And I would prefer not to see this as a campaign issue, but rather something we can do to fix our broken border system, immigration system, and to provide legal status for DACA children in this country. And so I think our deadline is probably to the end of July. I have a good relationship with Senator Cornyn, and I think, this will involve compromise, no question. But it's important that we move forward in the House.